Hello, Stampers. I'm Pam Jorgensen. I am a independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in Australia. I live in the southern part of Australia where it gets cold, and all the time I'm thinking of going up to the warm waters. I love swimming in the warm sea. So I thought for today's project, it would be so appropriate to use the Seascape stamp set along with the United Through Creativity stamping download that Stampin' Up! Has provided for us. So this is available for free out on the demonstrator or the customer website, wherever you are, and you can print it. There's a large number of pages. I'm only going to print and share with you the ones that I'm going to use today, but it's so perfect and it's free. And it even tells you the coordinating colors. So some of them print off in color, like this page right here. So this is the page that represents the Australia. So we have good day, you beaut, you're a true blue friend. But I chose to go ahead and print it in the black and white scale, because for the colors of the project that I wanted to make today, the colors didn't really go. So you can just change your printer to print in black and white and you get fun black and white projects. So I chose to use the word good day, which means hello here in Australia. And a lot of people say good day, mate. Good day, matey. So I decided I would make a card that represents the Great Barrier Reef, where it's nice and warm right now. It is so cold down here where I live today. And in fact, we're going to the snow for school holidays in a week. So we do get snow here and it is cold today. I thought this stamp set really represented the Great Barrier Reef, and even more fun, it is a fun fold card. So when you open it up, it pops up and just says, just thought you should know how wonderful you are. So good day. Just thought you should know how wonderful you are. And you guys are all wonderful for tuning in to Stephanie's multicultural event. This is so amazing, and I am so grateful to Stephanie for inviting me to participate. So let me show you. I'm not going to go through measurements today, only because it's too hard with different measurements around the world, but those will be in your tutorial. I am going to show you what we're using today. We are using the Sea Life dies. So these are available in your stamp set, and they actually in your catalog, and they actually coordinate with the Seascape stamp set. I wanted to share with you a couple of these little pieces. So I'm not using the fish today, but we're using the seahorse and the coral and then the little fishies. So I wanted to show you this shape is actually how they come. But in saying that, let me show you what you can also do is if you just take your scissors, your paper snips, you can come in here. There's only 4 little snips that you have to make. There's one. There's another one up on the high tummy area. 2. There's one over here by the fin, and I just push that seahorse back and snip that one out. There we go. And then there's another big one right here. And sometimes the easiest way to do that is just to actually break that piece out and then come in and trim that with your snips, making sure you don't cut the spines. There we go. And then you just get that little tiny triangle shape, and that's it. So we have that done. So the other thing that I've done that I wanted to share with you is I have gone ahead and cut out the good day. So I'm using the diorama dies as well. So this is a set of 7 dies, just awesome. And I have gone ahead and taped them together so that you can see how they do layer. They actually all layer and fit together. You can use them singly like I'm going to use. And these are one of the standalone stamp sets in your catalog, to be honest. Now, what I have gone and done is I have taken this smallest die, this pink one in the front. Oh, what's the new? I just lost the name of the color. It's brand new. Polished pink. So I've taken this small die right like that. And I've gone ahead and cut that out for us because you don't need to see me cut that particular piece. And that has given me that fun little good day shape. Okay, so that's how I got that particular piece. So we're going to be getting all of our pieces ready before we assemble. Now, when you see your stamp set, you're going to see that you have lots of pieces. So you have a card base, you have 2 coordinating strips, and these actually go on the front of your card because that is scored. I chose for today to keep them nice and neutral, the same color as my project. You will then find you have some square shapes. So you will have 2 larger squares. I like to layer it with another square. So here's some Coastal Cabana, okay? And then I had 2 squares of our basic white. Now, what else do you have? You have a scrap for the stamping, and then you will have 2 strips. Now these 2 strips are scored, and you will see that one end has a single score, okay? And when you measure, and the other end only has 1. Now, a tip to remember is that each one of these scores is equal. So you can change the sizes of these, and we'll talk about that later again, but these are all equal except for this long tab in the middle. So the most important thing you can do is keep those equal. Then I have pre-cut already one of these. So this is just one of the diorama shapes, and that's the one I chose to use for the front. I have die cut a piece of our coral using Granny Apple Green. And then I have die cut some of the little fish, and I have used Polish Pink and Mango Melody. Now, the fish are awesome because you get 2 fish with 1 pass. There's 2 fish cut out in 1 pass of the die. And I do have a Whisper White or a basic white insert, but I'm gonna have to find it because I must have set that somewhere. But let's go ahead and do a little bit of work. Okay, so let's get busy. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take my cardstock and use my bone folder. So this is what happens when I try to be so organized. I cannot find a thing right next to me. Here's my bone folder. Let me just grab that. There we go. And I'm just going to burnish those score marks. Now, depending on how you score and how you burnish, you may find that one of your pieces may end up overlapping. That's fine. Just keep it on the left side of your project because when you add on the other pieces, it will not show and it will actually help that your project. So I'm going to do that. You also have, when you cut your card kits, you will have these 2 rectangular pieces that will end up adhering to the front of your project. What I have decided to do is I have taken the Seashells 3D die, and I'm going to run those through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine just to get a little bit of texture on there. You could use designer series paper. You could have used another color. Like, there's no right or wrong. When you run this 3D folder through your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, you're going to use plate 1. And then you will not use any other plates except for the gray embossing plate. So this is for your thick embossing folders. And I'm going to run that through the machine and I will be back in a minute. All right, so I've ran those through my machine and you can see that they are slightly embossed. They're just beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and use my liquid glue. I actually do recommend that you use your liquid glue for a lot of this project, only because it gives you a little bit of wiggle room and then you can line things up exactly how you wish them to be on your card. So before we stamp, we're going to get some of these layering pieces done, only because I like to give them a second to set up and dry before I put those down onto my project. The other thing that you can do is if you are working with your liquid glue, you can actually set that aside to dry for just a minute or two, and it will get tacky, and that will prevent your glue from oozing out from under whatever you're gluing down. All right, so we have that piece done. So I did find my piece of basic white, and I am going to put that down inside of my project first. Now, one of the things that you will need to know is that you may choose to use designer series paper. You could emboss this piece. You could stamp on it. I find it a little bit difficult to stamp on first, only because you're not quite sure where you're going to be placing your insides. But you could work it out. But I decided I like my inserts to actually pop up on the little rectangle pieces on the inside. Okay, so we have our insert, we have our little embossed pieces on the front. And now let's do some stamping while I set this aside to dry for a minute. Alrighty, here we go. So on this front piece, I love this piece. And so what you're going to do, what I found works best actually, is this one actually has this little divot. See that little divot at the bottom? That's a perfect place to line up the seam of your card. So what I am going to do is I'm actually going to do some stamping first. So I am going to bring in the, what do you call this one? This is called, I call it seaweed. I don't really know what it is, to be sure. I'm using my Bermuda Bay ink pad. And because this one is actually so big, I'm going to tap it. And this is actually one of the old ink pads because I can't locate my new one, but it works just the same. So I'm going to just stamp that. Let's see, we're going to stamp that about right there, I think. So if you look at the actual photo, I have stamped my seaweed in a different, on the opposite side of the card, only because I thought it looked a little bit better over there. Just to fill in this empty space. Now this is Coastal Cabana, and I think this is supposed to be sand, but I've been using it for all kinds of things. So I'm just filling in. See how that just fills in that little bottom section so it doesn't look naked. There we go. I'm not going to stamp a whole lot because I'm going to stamp a few other things up there. I like that actually. Alrighty, now what else do we need? So we need to bring in our little seahorse that we cut. And I'm going to show you how to color that seahorse. And I actually, when I looked in the catalog, that's where I was inspired by coloring this little seahorse. So let me show you what I've done is I've taken the polished pink, whoops, and one of our blender brushes, and I'm just stroking that color in a circular motion onto my brush. I love these brushes. And I'm going to start with the head and move down because I want the darkest color on my head. When I start adding color, I am going to go in a circular motion off of my seahorse and then just start working the way down. I'm still going in a circular motion, and if I would have been smart, I would have left it in the frame and not trimmed it out until after I colored it, but that's okay. We can still work on it this way. I want his head nice and dark, or her head, or whatever this might be. Whenever I think of the Great Barrier Reef, I've only been there a couple times. One was a Stampin' Up! Trip, and they took us out on this big boat, and we went out and we snorkeled with the beautiful fish, and oh, it was amazing what we saw. So I always think of fun, bright colors. And let's get a little bit more. And actually, if I wouldn't have moved this, it would have left a really cool pattern underneath the stencil, underneath the die. It acted like a stencil. All right, so I'm just gonna bring a little bit down onto the tail. I want the end of the tail to be white, and that actually looks pretty good. I might put a little bit more on the head just to get it just a tad bit darker. Beautiful, and that is, oh, look at that. That would make a really cool card as well. All right, so let me set that aside for a minute. I don't think I'm using, oh, let's see, am I gonna use that again? I am. So let's grab, while I'm stamping, remember we're getting all of our little bits ready, I'm going to grab a piece of scrap paper, and I do have the big fish stamp in that set. And I'm going to ink it up with the polished pink and stamp one in polished pink. And I have my chamois, and I'm gonna switch gears and add a fish in Mango Melody. Now I re-inked that, and that hasn't quite sunk in yet this morning, but that's all right. So let's stamp one fish in Mango. Oh, beautiful. I love that. It just is so bright and so cheery. I probably should close this ink pad while we're talking. Okay. Now, since I can do it, I am going to trim out one of these fish. Actually, I'm going to trim out both. So when I trim this little fish, he's actually really simple. See how I'm actually turning the paper, and I'm not necessarily using my scissors I'm not cutting like that. I'm holding my scissors in place, and I'm turning the paper, and that makes paper cutting and snipping, fussy cutting, I guess is the official word, a little bit easier if you don't necessarily have to try to snip, that you can just gradually close your scissors and just maneuver the paper around. I like to leave a little white border on when I'm cutting out if I can, and then I'll just come down here and snip out the mouth. So you can see that this is actually not a very difficult piece to cut. And I've gone ahead just for time's sake, and I have cut the Mango Melody out previously. So we have two of those. Let me cut that little chin off. I don't like it pointed. There we go. All right, we are moving along, everyone. So remember I said you have some shapes. So let me get that out of there. We don't need that right now. So you had two of the Night of Navy, two Coastal Cabana, and two of our basic white. So just for TV time, I've gone ahead and adhered these two together using the liquid glue, just because you can line those little bits up a lot easier. So just know that those are already done for us, and let's do some stamping. So I'm going to bring in the sentiment on the inside, and for this one I want to use the Night of Navy ink. Now let's see how straight I can get it looking down into the camera, right? That's always a little tricky. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. Ready? Send me good thoughts. Oh, perfect. That never happens. So I am very happy. And I'm going to put the Night of Navy ink pad away for now. So these two pieces will eventually go onto there, but we have a little bit more stamping to do because I do want to attach my fish onto this little bubbly piece, or I had bubbles. So I'm going to bring in my scrap paper. We're going to do some stamping. And this time I'm going to be using Coastal Cabana. Whoops. And this is a little bubble. This is like a little bubble stamp. Let's see, did I use Coastal? Yep, I did. Okay, so I'm just gonna randomly stamp some bubbles on here. Now, what I found is that on the underside, there's one really big bubble. That's really nice if you just need a couple little single bubbles. I think that looks cute. Maybe See if we can get Mr. Biggie over here. And one more over there. Perfect. All right. Now on this piece right here, I want to bring in some of our seaweed or grasses. And I am going to stamp tall and moving down into small. So I'm still using my Coastal Cabana ink. There we go. And I might put another little one right. I don't like my corners naked. That's just me. So there we go. Perfect. So let me close up the ink pads. We're going to go ahead and put these two down onto our project. And once again, the reason that I'm doing this now is just so that it has a chance to set up before I start wiggling and playing with it as I do that insert. So that is probably the one thing that you will want to do, is do all your gluing first so that it has a chance to kind of set up. Oh, I apologize. I don't know if it's a truck coming into the yard. I don't know if I told you, but I live on a farm. I'm married to a farmer. And I can hear somebody coming into the yard. So apologies if you can hear a big loud noise. Of course that happens when you're doing lives, right? So I'm going to set that one aside. And you know what I might do? Sorry, I keep bringing in this piece of paper, my scrap papers. I might go ahead and add some bubbles onto this just so that I can, just so it's not naked. And I think I did that on the front. I can't remember. So let me do that as well. Oh yeah, we need some, maybe even a little bit of sand actually. We'll see. Let's stamp. These bubbles are so cute. Oh, I think we definitely need some sand. So let me grab my sand stamp back. Let's see, what did I do with that? Here it is. Now I think I used, oh yep, I used Coastal Cabana. So let's just add some, oh yep, a little bit of sand. I just don't want that to look like it's sticking out like a sore thumb because it's, oh, cute. Isn't that cute? All right, perfect. So let's see, let me close up these stamp pads so I don't have ink everywhere because that'll be the next thing. All right, here we go. So let's start assembling. So we're going to start with the front first. And like I said, if for some reason you overlap a little bit, keep it on the left. So then that one acts like the hinge. So I'm going to look first at where I want my decoration to be. Now this doesn't have to be a free shape. You could have used a rectangle, a circle. There's no right or wrong as to what you put here. You could also glue this flat. I am going to go ahead and use dimensionals today to pop it up. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of eyeballing where this piece goes, and I'm going to place my dimensionals on that half. Goodness, I don't know what they're doing out there, but now the dog's gonna add a little barking because she's excited. So apologies, guys, apologies. The life of living on a farm, right? No wonder I need to go to the Great Barrier Reef. All right, so I'm going to eyeball that, and I'm going to make sure that none of my dimensionals are showing. So there's one right there, so I know that I'm going to remove that one. I haven't really pushed those down hard so that I can remove those without a problem if it does show. Okay, here we go. So they're all in place. So let me pick off the backs. And I love my take a pick tool. Geez, it's like Grand Central Station out here at my house today. Normally it's pretty quiet, but I just saw them, the mechanics coming in to do their annual service as well, so it's like crazy. Now, what I have learned over the years is I like to add just a little bit of my multi-purpose glue to the back of my dimensionals. And what that does is it just ensures that those, where I have put those dimensionals, don't slide off. And it also makes sure that I have a little bit of wiggle room to actually maneuver that around before I push it down tight. So I don't cover the whole dimensional with glue, just a little bit. There we go. Perfect. All right. So the next thing that we're going to add is our seahorse. So I'm going to have a little bit of a look and see where I want to place things. So I'll probably put, because I want to wrap that around the seaweed. Let's do that, or the coral first, because of course, my goodness, of course, our little seahorse has to hang on to something, and it is hanging on tight today. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to have a little bit of a practice first to see where I want everything placed. I love these little shapes. They make a lot of fun. They're actually quite fun. So let's bring in some of our fish and have a little bit of a look. Only because I need to know where I'm going to put. All right, I think we'll do something like that. So the first thing that I lied to you guys, which is not unusual, is I'm going to stick just a little bit of my liquid glue, and I'm going to stick that coral down onto my shape. I'm not going to stick down the other, like these little bits yet. I may do that in a little bit. And I know that on my seahorse that it has some prime spots to add the little mini dimensionals. So one of the prime spots is right here on its belly. And then you have this little spot in the fin, the swim fin, that will hold a little mini dimensional as well. And then one more right up here in the cheek. So he's a little cheeky. And if you have it go in the right direction, I've got to turn him upside down. You should just be able to get that little thing in there. Let me have a look. Yep, all tucked in. And then down here on the tail, you can get just a smidgen of a mini dimensional in there. So I have just cut one in half. Whoops, and not even a half of one. Let's go like this. Let me just cut a chunk. And then I'll cut that in half again. So there's not very much room, but I do want that tail to be held down. That becomes very important because you don't want it to rip off. Perfect. All righty, here we go. So let's go ahead and peel off those little covers. You could glue this little guy down as well if you wanted, but I think we will use the dimensionals. They'll be enough. I'm going to go ahead and wrap that tail around that piece of seaweed. And I'm going to get that little guy on as much of an angle as I can, okay, without him hanging off the side of the card. All right, so I think we'll put that there. So I'm going to pop the Good Day up on dimensionals as well. But the thing to remember, normally we would cover the whole back of that with dimensionals. But because part of this will be hanging off onto that second flap, I'm only going to be able to put probably 2 dimensionals on there. And I'm going to have a look and make sure that I'm just lightly setting it down, that nothing is going to stick to the other side. Perfect. All right. And I think we will add a little fishy. So I might just glue that fish down just with a drop of my glue on the front half because I don't want all of the don't want everything glued down, but I do want to cover up that join a little bit. Now my little fish looks evil. There we go. He was on a little bit of a stamping bubble. Oh, I should have added some bubbles up there. I wonder if I still can. I bet I can. All right, let me grab the bubble stamp back. I do this all the time. I'm always adding after I have something assembled. So let me add a few little bubbles, because how can you have, oh, there we go. Those are cute. Maybe even some in the seaweed and a couple more. Cute. See, everything can be fixed. That is adorable. So where else should we tuck in a few fish? How about if we have another little mango melody one up there maybe? And even a little pink one, that would be cute. But I think we might pop those only because we can, and they are on the front of our project. So let's add one of the little dimensionals. I think you could probably even use a big dimensional here actually. I might tuck him right behind the little seahorse like he's been swimming behind there. And our little polished pink fish go in the opposite direction. He's just coming out from behind the coral. I don't think I'm going to tap that coral down. I'm going to leave that like that. To finish up the front, I have some of the opal rounds, which I really, really, really like. They look like bubbles coming up from the ocean. So let's see. Where am I going to add one? Decisions. I might put one. I might go right there. And I always like to do sets of 3. Just trying to think if I want one there. Just trying to figure out where to tuck. I think I might put a second one there. And I might come back to this one right here and use a smaller one, I think. So the opal rounds are great for little, oh yeah, there we go. Put one right there. Perfect. So let's get those out of the way. So we have our front pretty much done, and that would look so cool with a little bit of Wink of Stella as well. All right, so let's work on the inside of our card. So when you're working on the inside, like I said before, whatever this panel is, whatever you decide to do, you are going to first need to put that down. Now we're going to come back to these strips. So remember, one side has 2 score marks, like that, and one side has a single. So on the single, this is where we are going to put some glue. Right up to that seam, right up to that score mark, but not over it. So I'm actually going to set that down like that for a minute to set up, because you don't want any of that glue to ooze out. I'm going to do that on the same thing on the other side. I'm going to put glue on that one single square, the side that has one single scored mark. And this is how I remember this, is that we want to marry the single people. How's that? So single means 1 square. I'm first going to take my 2 stamped and prepared squares, and I'm just going to lay them in here and look and see how I want them to go. So while I'm letting that glue dry a little bit, I'm just having a look, figuring out where I want my squares to be placed in my card. You could also use circles, ovals. You could use the fun diorama shapes in there as well. The secret is that nothing can overlap in this middle section. So right here, you can have nothing that interacts and blocks that moving section. So you could have 3 shapes and just cut down these little wings. You could have if you had a really small shape, you could make this strip a little skinnier and just keep the score marks the same. Now, one of the things that you could do if you wanted is you could actually look at your squares and make a little mark in the middle so you kind of know where you want to glue things. To be honest, I just eyeball. I don't mark as a rule. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move those out of the way. I'm going to take the single mark. I'm going to center that over the little mark that I made, and I'm going to push that all the way to my scored line. Now remember, this is a single square, and we are going to marry it with the front of our card. So we're going to marry it and just shut it. And now this little flap should be hanging out from the front of our card. So as I did this with my Stamp Club girls, it's really easy to get confused because we are used to gluing onto upside down. So we're used to gluing like this, but for this one, we're going to marry it onto the front of that card. We're going to come down here to the bottom and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to center that over our mark, line it up with the score mark of our card. We're going to marry that single square with our card base, okay? And making sure that that stays fairly even across. See, and I got a little bit of glue coming out. I'll have to, there we go. Okay. So we have these two flaps hanging out. So this time what I'm going to do is once again working on the single end, the single box down on the end of our card. So there's two squares. We're working on the end one. This is where I'm going to put my adhesive. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one, only because I can. If you're not sure, do one at a time if you're not sure. And I might even do a practice card just to make sure that you have it going the right way. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to take that flap, this little 1-inch square, and I'm going to tuck that back, and that should match this second square. So I'm going to shut that one like that, and I am going to keep it. Let's see, I'm going to let that dry for a second. Let's let that dry. Okay, I'm coming back in. So this time I'm going to take that little 1-inch square at the end, tuck it under the corresponding square. So you can see where my glue is. And I am going to pull that straight out. So keeping that tucked underneath, I'm going to pull that out and give that a little bit of a press. So there's that second score right there, making sure that I keep that straight. I'm going to do the same thing with this one because you can see that there we go. That's how we're making our little mechanism. So I'm going to tuck the glued square down just like that so it's flat. I am then going to hold my card out. So I hold the card base out and keep that flat. And then that is how you get those little mechanisms to pop up inside your card. How cool is that? Okay. Can you see those in there? So I'm going to go ahead and just push those down a little bit and burnish those with my fingers. You could use your bone folder just to make sure that they're nice and tight. So a couple more things to be aware of. I'm going to show you how you attach the insides, and then just a couple things to make sure that you are aware of as you begin to decorate the inside of your project. So we've already talked that if you are using different shapes besides the square, that you do need to make sure they don't intersect in the middle sections. So let's go ahead and put on our stamped pieces. So when you put these on, what we need to do is we need to marry these with our card front, right? So we are going to marry that all the way over to the right side of that pop-up piece. So that should be flush against the side of your card. Now, typically we want to line things up with this. That's what I found that my girls like to do, is they try to line things up with where the card folds in the front, but it isn't. It's actually over against the mechanism on the left side. My goodness, you guys, I hope you can't hear that noise outside. Once again, I apologize. It sounds like an auger moving. So, okay. So you can see that makes our mechanism. So just, that's probably the one thing that I need to remind you of, is that gluing flush against that mechanism. Now let's bring our little decorations in. Let's see what I have left. I have some fish, and I have another little fishy. So let's put, I think I'll use a dimensional on this little guy. So when I'm decorating, I need to make sure that nothing hangs off the bottom or out the bottom of my card. And this little fish over here cannot hang past the side of that navy square, because that is where it folds, right? So if we want to pop this little guy up, or maybe have him flat, I think we'll, whoops, I can't use that one. I think we'll pop him up just because I can. And I always say add as much dimension to your project as possible, is that I can't have him hang over. You can go no further than that on the side of that card. So I think that's where that little guy is going to go. Now let's add a dimensional, actually maybe two, to this Mango Melody fish. And where am I going to put that one? I might put that one right here. So once again, I cannot go past that navy square, and I just realized I don't have any bubbles up there, but I'm going to add them because that's what I do best, is add things at the last minute. So let's add some bubbles. Let's see, hopefully they work. Let's have a look. Oh, perfect. Now I want to add this little pink fish. When you close your card, you need to make sure that whatever you have hanging off of the right side of this upper square, that it does not hit your card when it comes across. Now this one I know is going to work because I've maneuvered that around to know how far he can come off the square. So I'm going to have him flat, I think. Now, because I don't have, let's add a little bit of my liquid glue. I'm going to tuck him underneath. And I'm gently going to shut my card, and I can see that I've already moved that a little bit. Let me push that down. I should have probably used tape. So I know that when my card folds, that fish is in the right position. What I typically do is I gently fold, and then I look to see if anything has gotten wrinkled in between. And that is how we make our inside of our card and our little pop-up. I would guess it's a joy fold. I don't know what to call it, but it's really, really simple once you have the basic mechanism done. So I'll show you a couple more examples that you can create at home, but I hope that you have enjoyed visiting Australia and the Great Barrier Reef. Oh my gosh, you guys. So let's see a couple other ones that I've done with the same mechanism. So here's a happy birthday one. And it says, hello, friend. So when we talked about things hanging off, I had to actually move my leaves because they would bend on the inside. So that's an idea of one of the projects. And the other one is this one, through thick and thin, count me in. And then when you open it up, this one's kind of a Australian one as well. No matter what, I'm here for you, and I've got your back. So real fun, simple mechanism. And I hope that you share your creations online. Reach out if you have questions, but really, really, really simple. So good day, everyone. Have a wonderful stamping event, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.